This week's video is sponsored by Ownerly. Now here at the house, it's quite important that we know how much our house is worth because at some point we're gonna have to pull out a mortgage so we can refinance and get some more money coming into the project so we can hopefully complete this thing. And that's why we signed up to Ownerly. With Ownerly, you can see what your home is worth using the same tools that banks, lenders, and real estate agents use. Ownerly lets you track your home's value over time, see the latest home sales in your neighborhood, and manage your largest asset better. You can connect to people and places to make a plan for your future home. You can find homeowner property info so that you can learn about the home's neighborhood, sales history, property records, and ownership details. Ownerly helps me be a better homeowner by providing opportunities to save money, helping me keep tabs on my home's value. To increase the value of your home, you have to find out what it's worth first. This is why I use Ownerly. Unlike other real estate sites, Ownerly delivers much more detailed information. With Ownerly, you can compare options, save on insurance, improvement projects, and more. So go and tap my link in the description, get 50% off your Ownerly subscription today. So become a smarter homeowner today with Ownerly. So thank you so much to Ownerly for sponsoring this episode, and now let's get back to the show. Hello everybody, welcome back. This week's video is all about that wonderful ceiling medallion from the dining room, so let's not waste any time, let's get right to it. So initially I was told you guys I was going to be using this, which is essentially, it's called gauging plaster. It's really quick drying plaster of Paris. I didn't end up actually using this because it didn't really work the way I wanted to, and it added way too much material to the cracks. I want the cracks to be hairline cracks, not giant things. So this didn't really work. I don't know what the plaster guys meant about using plaster to repair it, but I looked online and a lot of people are repairing their plaster with, believe it or not, regular old Elmer's white basic, craft glue. And to be honest, it works exceedingly well. I didn't have much faith in it. I mean, this thing probably weighs, I don't know, 30 pounds, maybe a bit more. It's pretty hefty. It's a lot of material and it's quite thick. So I didn't expect when I lifted it up that this would have done much of anything. No, it held well. I don't want to obviously test it as far as I don't want to strain it too much, but I'm quite impressed. So Elmer's, you've got a new fan as far as gluing plaster back together. So there you guys go. Tip of the day. But I was going to time-lapse more of this, and I did time-lapse a bit more of it. But it's just so much footage. It would take it, because this is, again, 7 or 8 days of work. I've really been picking at this stuff, to get this where you can see the veins in this leaf, or yeah, this is actually a good question. What is this? Is this a pomegranate? I'm not sure. I assume these are hops. This is an apple, I believe. But since I didn't do too much time-lapsing for you guys on this, what I'm going to do really quickly is I have 3 pieces, one very small one that goes about right here, this one and that one, and I'm going to go ahead and glue all of those together and get this piece 90% back together. Of course, I have to glue these things back on, but one's still on the ceiling, so I have to get that down first. So let me go ahead and set everything up, and we're going to glue this together. Let's get these pieces in here, shall we? So first things first, open up the glue. Move this, get back out of the way. Let's get it on there. I will say that this is not an exact science or anything like that. This is just, the best way I found to be able to actually achieve the result I want, which is, of course, this thing back together. And how do I know pieces fit? You kind of just feel when they click. And I've sat here and played with this like an actual puzzle until I found the pieces that fit in the right spots. That being said, this puzzle does not have all of the pieces. This area underneath this flower on this side that we're seeing right now really didn't make it out of the fight super well. And so there's a huge chunk area right here that we're missing. And to be honest with you, there's not a lot I can do about that except recreate it at a later date with some plaster of Paris. Which, to be honest with you guys, is exactly what I'm going to do.
You know, when you don't have any other options, you don't have any other options. And that kind of just has to be what, you know, kind of is what it is, I guess. Let's see, so I'm very generously applying this glue. I don't really care if it gets on the desk. It is white glue. You can clean it up quite easy. But one thing I don't want it to do is to come unstuck after I've got this in the position I want it in. It has to stay in that position. So really trying to hit all the bases, both surfaces with it, and just really trying to slather it on there, because as much glue as I can get on it, the better. Nobody said this had to be a clean process, right? Let's get a little bit on this. If I can achieve getting all of these pieces in here at once, this might be the hardest piece to get in of all, because simply put, these are the last two pieces, and so it's making the whole thing fit just quite right. Uh-oh, like, yeah, then you see you get things like that happen. Come on. And then shims, like this guy here, are your friend. You want to hold the piece up. It's been a lot of shims, a lot of clamping to get this thing to go back together, and then really just babysitting it. Hopefully you guys will never have to go through this process. It's been certainly a challenging one. But you know, you pick yourself up, you figure out the correct way to fix your mistake, and you correct that mistake, you know. Okay. So there it is, and we'll come check on it. So there you have it. We'll come check on it in about an hour or so and see how it's doing. By that time, the glue should have taken hold. I might put a little bit of glue in some of these cracks as well, just to give it a bit more surface area to punch and bite to, because, you know, obviously I want this thing to hold together, at least until I can get a cast of it. I'm hoping it holds together well enough that at some point I can display it. But we'll see how that all goes. Right now, I just obviously need to be able to cast it so we can make the replica to go back up in the dining room. So that's the process. That's how it works. So nobody's in the dark about how this is all going together. For the most part, we've got this thing back together. Obviously, big chunk here, but there's also little holes kind of all the way around it. And the little holes shouldn't be too hard to necessarily fill. But this one, without any kind of backing, how do you fill that and then sculpt out, like, you know, the stem for the leaf and the rest of the shapes and stuff that I have going on here? So what I'm going to do is flip this thing over on this carefully constructed cot that I've made here. And we're going to use like drywall fiber tape, fiberglass mesh tape that you would use for drywall. And then plaster of Paris around it to give us a fresh new coat on the back, and that'll give us enough backing to be able to build up the layers on the front. So we're gonna go ahead and flip that over and get going. Okay, medallion is now upside down, and you can see the damage here. This hole right here always should be here because this is where the rod comes, or the pipe comes through for the gas. But you can see also a lot of the holes that we have to repair. Obviously this is still the ceiling plaster itself, which is the lime. This is the gypsum stuff here. So basically what we're gonna do is take some fiber mesh tape, gap these, and glue that in with some plaster of Paris, and then re-smooth out all of these areas so we can have a more complete area to build upon when we flip it back over and I start sculpting out these missing pieces. So that's what we're gonna do now. Enjoy the time lapse, and we'll be right back with you. So now you can see exactly what we've done here. It's dry. We had to leave the center hole, obviously, because this is where the gas line goes, and the gas lines will hold up the chandelier even though it isn't active. So I got to keep that portion open. But this is that section with that big gap in it. And we'll go ahead and flip the whole piece over, and I'll show you what that gap's looking like now that we've got a baseline fill on it. Boom, so there's our fill. You can see how it's looking. Let me get a little bit better of a camera angle there. There's still a lot of overhang here that I have to fix and a lot of cleaning that I have to do. This came out a little thick, so I'll have to cut that back down, but that's not a problem. You can sand this stuff a little bit, so there'll be a little bit of sanding just to smooth out some of the rough edges. And then I'm gonna, well, I mean, that's actually held really well. You can see some of the fiber tape down there too, how it came through. And it's quite strong, I have to say. And the other little holes, there's a little bit there that came out. Maybe cut down just a little bit and then fill around it. And same thing here with this little nub going on there. But overall, I mean, considering this thing was in tons of pieces and covered in paint, we are getting pretty close to it being back together. Now, I do have the little pointed bits that come off each of the sides. One's still up on the ceiling. This one was the only one that was still attached. And you can see the other two over here. I've got to just put those back up here at a certain point. But I wanted to get the main circle done first. So yeah, still probably another 2 or 3 days just to get it clean. But in the meantime, we'll slowly be building these parts back up and getting the rest of the paint and all the grime and stuff off it so we can get a nice, really beautiful cast off of it. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get to that now. So after about another 4 or so hours of cleaning last night, you can see I've got this area to about right here on the other side of these grapes kind of cleaned off and ready to go. And you can kind of see the mini cracks and crevices in the medallion itself, which I'm going to fix right now. I want this area to be clean enough to be able to put something down. We have some bird neighbors, they're kind of loud. But I have to get this clean enough because I want the plaster to stick to plaster, not to paint or whatever these layers are exactly. And so, yeah, lots of time cleaning. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and start a really fun part, which will be the artistry of sculpting this piece back. Now, lucky for us, this medallion is a repeat of things. So like the stem here in the leaf and the stem here in the grape, we know what this area looks like. I know there's a stem coming off the leaf here that attaches to underneath this petal, because that's exactly what happens here. Stem off the leaf, underneath the petal, comes up, stops right about there-ish, which is directly underneath the leaf. So I know I need to go to about right here and rebuild the surface here a little because it's missing, and go to about here and bevel it up into that, or slope it up into that area. So lucky for me, we have enough of this thing intact that I can put this thing back together the correct way. But yeah, lots of cracks to fill, lots of fun, as they say. But I have to say, oddly enough, this week I've been watching the restoration of Notre Dame in Paris. And as I've been working on this piece, watching these little episodes about what they've been doing, one conversation came up during one of the documentaries, people talking about, oh, well, you know, as much of a tragedy as it was that this building had burnt and all this stuff, it does give a new generation opportunity to really get up close and personal with these items and really understand how they were constructed and relearn these techniques. And so in some weird way, I suppose, that's kind of what I'm doing here. It's I don't know, it's like digging up dinosaur bones or something. It's painstaking and it's definitely a process, but it's actually been a lot of fun, and I get to be very intimate with this piece of architectural history, of the history of my home and the history of the craftsmen who built it. And I really like being up close and personal to it. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, I don't know, maybe use that in your guys' daily lives. Turn a tragedy into a positive, I suppose, or, you know, try to look at the bright side of everything, because, you know, there's something valuable here for me. There's something to be learned and to be admired. So yeah, I'm having a great time. That's all I'm really saying. But let's hop into the next time lapse, and I'll show you guys how I slowly sculpt and put this thing back together layer by layer, and hopefully we'll end up with a
a piece that doesn't look anything different than what it was originally. So let's get into it. And we're back with a mostly intact medallion. Still missing two of the sides here. As you can see, one goes here and one there. I have to get the other one off the ceiling still, but I'll grab that next week. But you can see some of the repairs I've been doing. Got all this kind of together. You can see the part of the leaf, little bits of the leaf like, well, this little bit here has been completely reconstructed. Right here between the two clamps that are holding that thing on, you can see that's been reconstructed, and this as well. There's another little bit that you can't see at the very end right here that's been completely redone. Right here you can see this little tip has been completely rebuilt. There's an entire grape I had to do right here, which is brand new. So slowly getting there. Obviously the clamps are holding on this piece right here because it broke away kind of in a jagged way like that. So lots of fixing to do there. But a lot of this has just been cleaning up, slowly reconstructing this thing. Obviously I'm not 100% there. I've still got patches here, here, some kind of messy stuff here I gotta correct. You can see some of the other constructed things. These didn't exist. These three little stems here off of what I believe to be cherries. Those were completely missing. So, and then just straight cleaning of this thing has been well, it's a task. It's time consuming. It's quite therapeutic, but it is definitely time consuming. It's actually a little bit dirty right now because I haven't vacuumed it recently, but it is starting to get closer, and I cannot wait to get this thing casted and put back up and look absolutely wonderful for our wonderful, wonderful dining room. It's such a pretty piece, and you know, there's a lot of character to it. Nothing's actually exact on all the sides. Everything's a little bit tweaked or a little bit off, showing that some of this stuff, while obviously it was casted, there were just minor differences. And you can tell that when they cast this thing, even though this thing was cast, there are still little imperfections kind of everywhere, little differences that make it each little, you know, grape slightly unique, and each leaf, the veins are slightly different. So it's just really cool. It's a really awesome piece, and you can kind of see a lot of the handiwork and craftsmanship that went into building this piece originally. And it's an absolutely just beautiful piece. So while the vast majority of my time was spent doing nothing but this medallion and trying to sculpt it and get it back together and clean it up, I did do a little bit of something downstairs. Now, it's not monumental, but it does add a lot. So let's go check it out. So here we are in the bathroom, and I have completed this side of the door. And that is a wax and shellac finish, and man is it pretty. So I've shown you guys a few times how wonderful this curly pine is, but now with a piece that's 100% complete, look at just the crazy holographic nature of this whole thing. Just the colors just absolutely pop. So the door is now, as far as finish is concerned, 100% done. However, it's not, obviously I don't have all the plates or all the hardware installed yet. That'll come next week. This was kind of something I did when I got a little bit bored of picking paint off this week. And yeah, like all the pieces, there are imperfections in this thing. Little bits and cuts and scrapes and this weird little box thing from where the lock was on the other side which is right there. Obviously still have to install the lock, but since this door used to swing out, it was on this side because this would have been the inside of the bathroom. So that patch looked a whole lot better before I put the finish on. But the patch over here is still extremely close. You can barely tell. Along with the one at the very top, which really isn't too bad either. This strip is that strip I put in. So all said and done, I'm happy enough with it. And it's kind of cool to see, if you see right there, you can see the little V cut. That itself is actually a really old patch, probably an original patch. So, you know, if we're, you know, splitting hairs here, they did it too, and they did it first. So I can be somewhat excused for that little thing going on there. And again, all these things are antique items. They show age, there's nicks and cuts. And quickly, in other news, the floor in here, I was supposed to have the tile in this week. That was the plan. I had talked to a guy, and I had thought had hired a guy to come do it. But about a week and a half ago, he stopped returning my messages, which was odd. And yeah, haven't heard from him. So I suppose next week I'll be trying my hand at tile. I have done it once before, but never a, well, pseudo mosaic sort of tile that I'm trying to lay down in here. So yeah, that'll be an adventure. And it just goes to show, like, this guy, this Tyler, old friend of mine, it just seems odd to cut me off like that. You know, if you can't do it, you know, have a conversation with me or whatever. But yeah, as I always say to you guys, good help is hard to find. So if you do ever find a contractor that you really like, or you think did a wonderful job, or was excellent on price and excellent on quality, hang on to those people. They don't come around very often for any trade. So when you find one in a specific trade, you know, definitely call them back next time, you know. So it'll be a bit of an adventure next week, because I have to figure out how to do, well, just like with most things in this house, something I've never done before. But that's okay. Nothing's necessarily rocket science. Most of it's art, and it's one thing I happen to be pretty okay at. So, but you know, we'll get it done. I'm not too worried about it. I figured out harder things than that before, so we'll just make it happen. So that's going to be it for this week's episode, guys. I hope you guys all enjoyed. As always, we really are so pleased that you guys care to join us on this journey, even if it's something somewhat boring as digging paint off of a plaster. But I always think that stuff's interesting, as I said before. So thank you guys. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week, and we'll catch you guys again next time. Bye-bye.